let's talk about this special edition of Down to Earth. Now in this edition, the first thing that we would discuss is about millets. Now there is various organizations who have been working for promotion and development of millets. A Delhi based enterprise has been mentioned here, where infants have been provided food under NEOMI, which is nourishment of millets, and millets used across various ways have been discussed and mentioned in this section. The next is the rare earth elements. Now we have seen the production of the rare earth elements have been tremendous, specifically in the areas which have been unexplored. For example, Canadian firm is looking for rare earth mining in Malawi, and that would start in 2025. Similarly, Bannerman Energy from Australia has acquired a stake in Namibia for the Lofdal heavy rare earth operations. There are around 2000 tons per year of rare earth oxides which would be found, and in South Africa, Maxpelkal mine has been taken into account with large deposits of neodymium and perisdiminium. So those are two important rare earth metals. Then similarly from Angola, there have been minings in the Longonjo mine, which is in operation for last 35 years. The next is black soldier fly larva. Now this is raised on farms. It is a low cost nutrient alternative for poultry feed, and this has been developed as one of the major feeds. So for the small poultry farmers, this is a cost effective feed. India is one of the top 5 chicken and egg producers, and therefore feed production accounts very significantly. The feed accounts for 70% of the entire cost of poultry production, and therefore concerns have been raised. Now here there are various viable alternatives. For example, alternative to wheat is rice barn. Similarly, there are various other alternatives which have been given as feed to chicks. Larva of black soldier fly has very high nutrition and can be raised very easily. It is a larva which feeds on organic matter, and therefore easy to grow, low cost, low footprint, ecologically friendly, and has a natural feed companionship to poultry farming. This also would require reduction in the waste generation. So this is a small process through which this happens. A mixture of organic waste goes into the primary collection vessel where larva segregation takes place, and the leachation recirculation again takes place. Now if we talk about the micronutrients, if we compare of the black soldier fly larva with the conventional diet, we see here a very high percentage of protein is found, a significantly high percentage of fat, and then we have also good amount of phosphorus. Only the amount of potassium is a little reduced from the conventional diet. So this could be a good alternative. It is odorless and one of the best choice to have this as a feed. This larva could be considered as a qualitative feed because it has high protein, high fat, and therefore is a preferential feed. The next is hawk plum. Hawk plum is a soaring agent and also used for treatment of cancer and diabetes. It is also known as ambara or amra in Hindi and is used for soaring agent in various cuisines. It looks similar to green unripe mango and is more sour in taste. It is found in the region of Konkan and Goa and is also used for making chutney, pickles in Kerala. The reason mainly it is used is for its nutritive value, medicinal properties. It has good amount of ascorbic acid, malic acid, calcium, phosphorus, which are natural antioxidants, useful for better digestion and has anti-diabetic properties as well. It is also used to prepare hematite nanoparticles which are useful in controlling the mammalian cancer cells, and therefore it is useful for medicinal purposes. Mucositis, which is inflammation of the mucous membranes of the digestive tract, there also hawk plum is significantly used. It has been used, the bark of it has been used for inflammatory disorders. The seeds are used for malaria. So there have been various benefits of hawk plum which have been given here. Now Leaf extract is also used in the form of anti-diabetes, and this is in the name of metformin that is released from it. The next is the domino effect of drought. Now, domino effect means the drought starts at one places and it spreads to the nearby area. The region of Marathwada, Ahmednagar is one such region. Oregon in Ahmednagar district of Maharashtra is one of the worst affected. Even the females are not willing to marry the males in those areas. The simple reason they would have to work for hours to fetch water, and therefore drought has become a very important concern. The women contribute to nearly 43% of agricultural labor in developing country. And if this situation worsens, the distress on women starts very high. Initially, this region was inundated by floods, but there has been a climate change and the region has been badly affected by the crisis. Now, we are aiming to have a poverty-free India. The various consumption expenditure surveys have talked about the poverty levels in India. The free fruit grain distribution has gone through under the PM Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana. Similarly, one of the studies from India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Bhutan says that how subsidies under the National Food Security programs have impacted the inequality and extreme poverty. The extreme poverty was low to 0.8% in the pre-pandemic period, but then there was food transfer, and after that we have seen sporadic reports on the elevation of poverty. There is various schemes. For example, PM Kisan Samman Nidhi, Manrega scheme, Ujjwala are some of the schemes which aim to increase the per person per month rural income, and this has gone up by nearly 430 rupees per person. Joshimath, the detail we have covered in a separate video. The idea behind Joshimath disaster was very obvious. Based on anthropogenic factors, the tunneling which was done had a boring into an aquifer which leaked water, and then prevention of that boring led to these cracks that started to develop. Expanded or unprecedented development in the area has again given rise to the issues. The Tapovan Vishnugad hydropower project of NTPC has been also held responsible for the same. There had been previous committees as well, and there was various cases which were cited previously, and this ignored have led to rehabilitation issues as of now. So as of now, there is a huge issue with drainage system, building structures, the existing building codes, and the way in which this could be taken further. The next is genetic engineering. The American chestnut tree is one of the extinct trees in United States in the wild, and then we are talking about genetically modified tree being growing in the wild. Darling 58 is one of the species which is awaiting clearances to be grown in wild as a replacement for American chestnut tree. Now, this is a genetically engineered species. However, in United States, this is the first time they are talking about a genetically engineered species in wild. There have been various species which have been grown in China so far. This American chestnut is native to North America and was affected by a fungal blight that came from China and affected nearly 4 billion trees. This has led to a huge devastation in the wild in United States. And then, as we said, China in 2002 allowed commercial plantations and insect-resistant poplar trees. 2 varieties of genetically engineered trees were allowed. Similarly, in Malaysia, a non-profit organization, World Rainforest Movement, planted nearly 1.4 million genetically engineered poplar trees. So there have been commercialization and commercially genetically engineered trees which have been growing across the world. United States is yet to release it. Now, genetically engineered variety is modified by adding copies of the gene which have, let's say, manganese containing superoxide dismutase that enables the plant to tolerate extreme climate stress and climate conditions. Rubber is one of the species where we are talking about genetic engineering in India, and there are 6 more rubber varieties which have been brought forward, but there are risks again. These trees would again be susceptible to a specific disorder. They could survive in extreme attacks of drought or flood, but with the evolution of pathogens, these species would again be susceptible. There would be one species which would be reduced as part of genetically engineered species, but later on in a larger area this would be affected. Indigenous population would be affected because local economies run on local fuels. The next is women in science, the STEM, which is the science, technology, engineering, maths and medicine. Here we are talking about the involvement of women. On 5th January, the Women Science Congress took place, and the Rashtra Tukoji Maharaj Nagpur University, Rashtrant Tukdoji Maharaj Nagpur University held this Indian Science Congress session for women, specifically dedicated to women's role and women's empowerment with sustainable development. According to UN, less than 30% of the researchers globally are females, and the Department of Science and Technology talks about Indian research at only 13%, which increased to 18% by 2018. There is a lot more scope for women representation, and of the 574 recipients of Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Award, only 21 are female. So definitely empowerment is a very, very important key factor that needs to be taken into account. We could also talk about increase in the GDP. The Indian Institute of Science, one of the honorary professors there, have said that India could lead to a GDP increase by 14 trillion in 2020. But for that, we would require a better participation from female, knowledge involvement and research advancement through Nourishing the Kiran scheme, the STEM, the Science and Engineering Research Board promoting opportunities, Women Entrepreneurs Quest, and Entrepreneurs and Empowerment Foundation. The next is talking about the various aspects which have led to the draft innovation policy, and the main chapter talks about equity and inclusion. This talks about 30% of the decision making should at least be women in the field of science and technology, and then hiring them from various aspects, bringing in gender equity, talking about counseling, gender, sexuality, ethnicity, language and more. The PDS system under the National Food Security Act says that 75% of the rural and 50% of the urban population receive subsidized grain through the PDS system. The beneficiaries hold the PDS cards, and therefore there are two groups that have been demarcated: the poorest of the poor, who fall under the Antyodaya Anna Yojana, and the remaining under the priority households, the population below the poverty line. Both of them have been provided with the specific food grains for the years of pandemic. Now, there have been case studies from Jharkhand talking about particularly vulnerable communities, mainly in the Ramgarh block, and the PDS card scheme available for them. There have been schemes in Rajasthan talking about how the things have been happening, the raising of the ceiling cap. So government has been working with seeding the ration cards with the Aadhaar cards, and that is one of the ways to actually bring this in line. The next some important issues were: one is the atmospheric river phenomena, which was seen in the region of California. People were without power, and this is a river in the sky which talks about, or which brings about, heavy downpour, flooding and mudslides. UK has experienced for the first time increase in the temperature beyond 10 degrees Celsius, and this has been an exceptional warmest year, the 2022 for United Kingdom. The next is the researchers have talked about the Halteria microscopic ciliates, which are single-celled organisms that are found in the fresh water and can actually thrive on a virus-only diet. So it is an interesting study. Spain has passed a law which makes tobacco companies liable to pay for collecting the discarded cigarette butts from the streets. The Biju Sheetal seed, a Jalna company, has created the first filial generation hybrid brinjal variety in the name of Janak and BSS 793. There have been various breeds, new breeds which have been introduced under the ICAR guidelines: 3 for cattle, 1 for buffalo, 3 for goats and 3 for pigs. There have been various protozoa-borne diseases. After malaria, Kala Azar is one of the most deadliest parasitic diseases. And then there are various generic companies which are including the Indian firms, talking about the major pharmas which put in, pay for delay pack, and consumers pay heavy price for it. The innovative companies have been charged for paying hefty sums and offering licensing, and that is to keep the other competitors off the market. So those are some of the important developments that we have seen in this edition of Down to Earth. We are covering Down to Earth every fortnightly. Along with that, Yojana and Kurukshetra every month. Stay tuned for further updates from our side. Have a wonderful day ahead.